They called my disabled son a burden at dinner, so I handed them custody papers. If you're just tuning in, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update on this story. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The crystal chandelier above the mahogany table cast shadows that danced across my sister's face as she spoke those words. Words that would shatter everything I thought I knew about family. The scent of her expensive perfume mixed with the aroma of roasted chicken filled the dining room, but suddenly I couldn't breathe. He's just such a burden, honestly, Vanessa said, gesturing toward my 8-year-old son Marcus, who sat quietly coloring in his wheelchair. The crayon slipped from his small fingers and I watched it roll across the hardwood floor. I mean, when are you going to face reality? He'll never be normal. My husband David's fork clattered against his plate. Our eyes met across the table and I saw the same fire burning in his that I felt in my chest. Marcus looked up, his beautiful brown eyes searching my face for understanding. He might have cerebral palsy, but he understood more than people gave him credit for. What did you just say? My voice came out as a whisper, but the silence that followed was deafening. Even my mother, sitting at the head of the table, had gone perfectly still. Vanessa shrugged, taking another sip of wine. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. You've sacrificed your whole life for him. When's the last time you went anywhere without having to worry about ramps and special accommodations? That's when I stood up. That's when everything changed. Because what my sister didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment for 3 months. 3 months earlier, I'd discovered something that turned my world upside down. I was cleaning out our spare room when I found a stack of old documents in a shoebox. Birth certificates, adoption papers, medical records. But one document made my blood run cold. Marcus wasn't just my son. He was my nephew. My hands trembled as I read the legal paperwork. Vanessa had given birth to Marcus when she was 19 and unmarried. She'd signed away her parental rights immediately, and somehow through family connections and legal maneuvering I didn't fully understand, David and I had adopted him as an infant. We'd been told he was from an agency. We'd never questioned it because we'd tried for years to have children naturally. Marcus was our miracle baby, arriving just when we'd given up hope. But seeing Vanessa's signature on those documents, seeing her maiden name listed as the birth mother, everything clicked into place. The way she always seemed uncomfortable around Marcus. The way she'd make excuses not to babysit. The way she'd change the subject whenever anyone mentioned how much he looked like our side of the family. Because he did look like us. He looked exactly like her. I'd spent weeks wrestling with this knowledge, wondering if I should confront her. But tonight, listening to her call my son a burden, I realized she didn't deserve the courtesy of a private conversation. David squeezed my hand under the table. He knew something was wrong, but he didn't know what I was about to unleash. Vanessa, I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. Before you say another word about my son being a burden, there's something you should know. I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder I'd been carrying for weeks. The manila envelope felt heavy in my hands, weighted with secrets and lies. Marcus had gone back to his coloring, but I could see his little ears perked up, listening. What's that? Mom asked, her voice tight with concern. These are Marcus's adoption papers, I said, laying the folder on the table between the dinner plates. Papers that show exactly who his birth mother is. Vanessa's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. The color drained from her face, and for the first time in my life, I saw real fear in my sister's eyes. You want to know why Marcus looks so much like our family, Vanessa? Why he has your same stubborn cowlick? Why he gets that little dimple when he concentrates just like you do? I opened the folder, revealing the documents. It's because he is our family. He's your son. The silence was so complete I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. David's sharp intake of breath. Mom's silverware clattering to her plate. And underneath it all, the soft scratch of Marcus's crayon as he continued coloring, oblivious to the bomb I'd just detonated. Vanessa's hands began to shake. The confident, judgmental sister who'd been lecturing me about reality suddenly looked like a frightened teenager. That's impossible, she whispered. Is it? I pulled out the birth certificate, sliding it across the polished table. Vanessa Marie Johnson. Age 19. Baby born with complications. Father unknown. Rights terminated within 72 hours. Mom's chair scraped against the floor as she stood abruptly, How did you? Her voice trailed off and I saw the guilt written across her face. She'd known. My own mother had orchestrated this elaborate lie. You all knew, I said, the pieces falling into place like a horrific puzzle. Everyone at this table knew except David and me. We've been raising Vanessa's child for 8 years, and not one of you thought we deserved the truth. Vanessa was crying now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. He was going to ruin my life. I was supposed to start college. I had scholarships plans. I couldn't handle a disabled baby. So you let us believe he was a stranger's child? David's voice was dangerously quiet. We fell in love with this little boy thinking we were saving him from the system. But really, we were saving you from your responsibilities. Marcus looked up from his coloring book, sensing the tension. Mama, why is Aunt Nessa crying? The innocence in his voice broke something inside me. This beautiful, brilliant child who lit up every room he entered, who worked twice as hard as other kids to accomplish simple tasks, who never complained about his limitations. Vanessa had called him a burden. Because sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, baby, I said, kneeling beside his wheelchair. Big mistakes that hurt people they love. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I reached into my purse again, this time pulling out a different set of documents. Official legal papers that I'd spent the last month preparing with the best family attorney in the city. Vanessa's eyes widened as she recognized the letterhead. Since you think Marcus is such a burden, I said, my voice deadly calm, I'm giving you the opportunity to take responsibility for what you created. I slid the custody papers across the table. These transfer full legal custody of Marcus back to his biological mother. All you have to do is sign. Vanessa recoiled like I'd thrown acid at her. Are you insane? I can't. I don't know how to take care of a disabled child. Funny, I said. That's exactly what we thought when we adopted him as newborns. But we figured it out. We learned about physical therapy, speech therapy, adaptive equipment. We fought insurance companies and school districts. We became experts in cerebral palsy because that's what you do when you love your child. David leaned forward. You're calling him a burden when we've spent 8 years proving he's anything but. Mom finally found her voice. Honey, you can't be serious about this. Oh, I'm completely serious. I opened the document to the signature page. Vanessa wants to judge how we've raised her son? He wants to call him a burden? Fine. Let her prove she can do better. Marcus had stopped coloring entirely now, his intelligent eyes moving between the adults. He understood more than we realized. He always did. The room felt electric with tension, like the air before a thunderstorm. You can't do this, Vanessa stammered, pushing the papers away. There has to be laws, statutes of limitations. Actually, I said, savoring each word, there aren't. The adoption was what's called a kinship placement, meaning family took in family. But since the birth mother is still alive and her rights were never fully terminated under the new Family Preservation Acts, those rights can be reinstated. I'd done my research. I'd spent sleepless nights learning family law, finding loopholes, preparing for this exact moment. Besides, I continued, you've been paying child support this whole time. You just didn't know it. The confusion on Vanessa's face was almost comical. What are you talking about? That family fund Mom set up 8 years ago? The one where you contribute $500 every month for family emergencies? Where do you think that money's been going? Mom's face went ashen. She sank back into her chair like a deflated balloon. Every penny has gone into Marcus's medical expenses, his therapies, his equipment. You've been supporting your son financially while calling him a burden emotionally. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. The irony is beautiful, isn't it? Vanessa turned to Mom with pure betrayal in her eyes. You've been stealing from me? Making me pay for him without telling me. It wasn't stealing, Mom whispered. It was responsibility. David's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression changed completely. We need to talk, he said to me urgently. Now. David pulled me into the kitchen, his face pale with shock. That was Dr. Peterson's office, he whispered, glancing toward the dining room where Vanessa's sobs echoed off the walls. Marcus's latest MRI results came back. My heart stopped. What did they find? The cerebral palsy. It's not what they thought. His hands shook as he showed me his phone. There's something else. Something that changes everything. David, you're scaring me. The brain scans show evidence of shaken baby syndrome. Old trauma. From when he was an infant. The world tilted sideways. I gripped the kitchen counter, feeling like I might collapse. That's impossible. The adoption agency said he was born with cerebral palsy. The doctors want to see us tomorrow. They said the damage patterns are consistent with abusive head trauma, not birth complications. David's voice cracked. Maya, if Vanessa hurt him. Through the doorway, I could see Marcus still sitting at the table, humming softly as he colored. My brave, beautiful boy who'd overcome so much. Who we'd been told was simply born different. She gave him up because he was damaged, I whispered, the horrifying truth washing over me. But what if she was the one who damaged him? Vanessa's voice carried from the dining room. I can't sign those papers. I can't take him back. But now I wondered if the real question wasn't whether she couldn't take him back, but whether she should ever be allowed near him again. Everything I thought I knew about my family was crumbling. I walked back into the dining room with steady steps, but my insides were churning like a hurricane. Vanessa was still crying, but I felt no sympathy. Only a cold, calculating anger that surprised me with its intensity. Vanessa, I said, my voice cutting through her sobs. Tell me about the night you gave Marcus up. She looked up, mascara streaked and eyes red. What? You heard me. Tell me exactly what happened the night you decided you couldn't keep your son. Mom stood up abruptly. Maya, that's enough. This family has been through. Sit down, Mom. I didn't even look at her. My eyes were locked on Vanessa. You said he was born with cerebral palsy. That it was too much for a teenage mother to handle. But I want to hear the real story. Vanessa's hands trembled as she reached for her wine glass. I was just a kid. I didn't know how to take care of a baby, especially one with special needs. How did you know he had special needs? David asked quietly. Cerebral palsy isn't always apparent at birth. The question hung in the air like smoke. Vanessa's eyes darted between us, looking for an escape route that didn't exist. He wouldn't stop crying, she whispered finally. He cried all the time. I was exhausted. I was alone. I just wanted him to stop. My stomach dropped. What did you do, Vanessa? Marcus had gone completely still, his crayon suspended in midair. Even at 8 years old, some part of him recognized the gravity of this moment. I shook him, she admitted, her voice barely audible. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I felt David's hand find mine, his grip tight enough to anchor me to reality. Because reality had just shifted into something unrecognizable. You shook him. I repeated the words slowly, letting each syllable sink in. You shook your 3-week-old baby. I didn't mean to hurt him. Vanessa's voice broke. I was just trying to make him stop crying. I was so tired, so overwhelmed. When he wouldn't wake up properly the next morning, I panicked. I took him to the hospital and told them he'd fallen. Mom buried her face in her hands. Vanessa, no. The doctor said he had brain damage. They said it might have been from birth complications, and I let them believe it. When social services got involved, Mom suggested the adoption. Said it would be better for everyone. Better for everyone. The phrase echoed in my mind. Better for everyone except Marcus, who'd spent 8 years living with the consequences of his mother's violence. And you let us adopt him, David said, his voice hollow. You let us believe we were getting a child with natural disabilities, not one who'd been abused. I was protecting him. Vanessa protested. I knew I couldn't be trusted with him. I knew you two would be better parents. You were protecting yourself, I corrected. From criminal charges. From responsibility. From the truth. Marcus dropped his crayon completely now, his head turning between us with growing awareness. My heart shattered watching his confusion. But the custody papers were still on the table. And my plan was just beginning. Sign them, I said, pushing the custody papers toward Vanessa again. Maya, you can't be serious, Mom started. I am deadly serious. I kept my eyes on Vanessa. You think Marcus is a burden? You think I've sacrificed my life? Then take him back. Raise your son yourself. Vanessa shook her head violently. I can't. I won't. This is crazy. What's crazy, I said, pulling out my phone, is that I've been recording this entire conversation. I held up the device, the red recording light clearly visible. Every word. including your admission that you shook your infant son hard enough to cause brain damage." The blood drained from Vanessa's face. You can't." "I can, and I did." I stopped the recording and immediately hit send. "And I just sent a copy to Detective Williams. You remember him, don't you? From when you reported your car stolen last year. Turns out he specializes in cold cases involving child abuse." David stared at me in shock. Even he hadn't known about my planning, my preparation. For months, I'd been building a case, gathering evidence, consulting lawyers. Because somewhere deep down, I'd always suspected there was more to Marcus's story. "There's no statute of limitations on child abuse in our state," I continued calmly. "Especially when it results in permanent disability." Vanessa shot to her feet, knocking her chair backward. "You're destroying our family." "No," I said, standing to face her. "I'm protecting my son. From the person who hurt him once and just called him a burden to his face." My phone buzzed. Detective Williams was calling back faster than I'd expected. I answered it on speaker, my eyes never leaving Vanessa's terrified face. "Mrs. Thompson? This is Detective Williams. I just listened to your recording." "And?" I asked, though I already knew the answer from his tone. "We're reopening the case. I need everyone who was present during this dinner to come to the station tomorrow for questioning. Especially Ms. Johnson." Vanessa collapsed back into her chair, hyperventilating. "This is insane. Maya, you're my sister. And Marcus is your son," I shot back. "The son you abused as a baby and abandoned. The son you just called a burden." But Detective Williams wasn't finished. "Mrs. Thompson, there's something else. We've been investigating a series of suspicious infant injuries from around the same time period. Similar patterns, similar hospitals. Your sister's name has come up in our database." The room went dead silent. Even Marcus had stopped coloring completely, sensing the gravity of what was happening. "What are you saying?" David asked. "I'm saying Marcus might not have been Ms. Johnson's only victim." Vanessa made a sound like a wounded animal. Mom reached for her, but she jerked away. "How many babies?" I whispered into the phone. 3 others that we know of. All placed for adoption after mysterious birth complications. All with the same lawyers, the same social workers, the same hospital. My legs gave out. I sank into my chair, staring at the woman I'd called sister my entire life. The woman who'd been coming to family dinners, playing with Marcus, pretending to be his aunt. The adoption ring, Detective Williams continued, used vulnerable young mothers who'd harmed their infants. Instead of facing prosecution, they'd place the babies with families desperate for children. Everyone stays quiet, everyone benefits. Except the children. I looked at Marcus, really looked at him. Every therapy session, every doctor's appointment, every sleepless night when he was in pain, all of it caused by the woman sitting across from me. "Vanessa," I said slowly, "how many babies did you hurt?" She was rocking back and forth now, keening like she was in physical pain. "I didn't mean to. I was just a kid myself. I couldn't handle the crying, the pressure. My boyfriend had left, I had no money, no support." "How many?" I repeated. "4, she whispered. "Including Marcus." The number hit me like a physical blow. 4 innocent babies. For families who thought they were rescuing children from unfortunate circumstances, not knowing they were adopting victims of abuse. Mom finally spoke, her voice ancient and broken. "I thought we were protecting them. The babies and Vanessa. I thought." "You thought wrong," I said. "All of you." Detective Williams's voice came through the speaker. "Mrs. Thompson will need those custody papers as evidence. Don't let anyone leave until we arrive." But Vanessa was already standing, grabbing her purse with shaking hands. "Where do you think you're going?" I asked. "Anywhere but here," she said, her voice hollow. That's when David stepped between her and the door. "I don't think so." 20 minutes later, police sirens wailed outside Mom's house. Through the window, I watched Detective Williams and 2 other officers walk up the front steps. Vanessa sat frozen in her chair, staring at the custody papers that would never be signed. "Marcus," I said gently, "would you like to go color in Grandma's room while the police officers talk to the grown-ups?" He nodded solemnly. As David wheeled him out, Marcus reached for my hand. "Mama, did I do something wrong?" My heart shattered all over again. "No, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. You're perfect exactly as you are. After he left, I turned to Vanessa one final time. You called my son a burden. But the real burden has been carrying your secret all these years. The burden of not knowing why he suffered. The burden of your lies. Detective Williams entered the dining room and everything moved quickly after that. Rights read, handcuffs clicked into place, promises of justice finally served. As they led Vanessa away, she looked back at me with pleading eyes. Maya, please. I'm your sister. No, I said firmly. You're a stranger who hurt my child. My family starts and ends with David and Marcus. 6 months later, Vanessa was sentenced to 15 years. The adoption ring was dismantled. 3 other families learned the truth about their children's origins. And Marcus? Marcus continued being the remarkable little boy he'd always been, surrounded by people who truly understood his worth. The custody papers sit framed in my office now. Not as a threat, but as a reminder that love means protection, and sometimes protection means making the hardest choices of all. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, and who chooses love over convenience every single day. Confession time. Part of me thinks Maya is my hero, part of me wonders if she'll regret this someday. What's your gut telling you? Let me know in the comments. I read every single response. And if you want more stories about people who stop apologizing for having standards, subscribe and hit notifications.